How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Elvis Junction Reviews. Today we're looking at another product from Rapido. We're looking at a Rapido GE U25B, and this is Santa Fe 1609 in the pinstripe scheme. And you will notice something's a little off with this diagram here. It's actually a literal piece of paper. Whoever was at the hobby shop, I guess there was no picture like this on the box, so I guess either somebody at Rapido or at the hobby shop went ahead and cut out a piece. They printed it and they cut it out, so it looks very interesting indeed. But here it is, and it's a lovely Rapido box with the diagram right here on the front. There's the high hood version here on this side, but on the other side we also have the low nose version. So we're going to go ahead and get this out of the box. I hope everybody's having a good day today. Oops. It comes out like that. So we have a few things going on in this box. We have the manual, which looks kind of like an actual owner's manual to the locomotive, which is very cool. I like that about Rapido. And so this will tell us prototype history, how to handle it, and it'll also give us a set of functions, like right here, for instance. And at the back, which I think is really cool, is an actual diagram of the actual locomotive that gives us a series of different parts that are on the locomotive, and this is the actual locomotive. So it'll tell you, for instance, like right here, there is the radiator blower right here, and there are the two radiator fans right here. And you can see the toilet, which is very funny indeed. All right, so we get that out of the way. We have another function update, I guess. So it says update. Some last minute changes were made to this decoder function for the U25B. So that's pretty cool indeed. And then we have a parts diagram here, like for our product here. This is the low nose variant, and then here is the high nose variant. Okie dokie. So we have a piece of foam here. Just pull that off. I'm actually going to do this. There we go. Here it is, all nicely protected. There we go. Now, I've found this something interesting when I was looking at this locomotive yesterday to inspect it. Two pieces of foam, and this one has these little indents of where these bits right here are. So just have to remember that from now on whenever you're going to unbox a locomotive like this. Let's go ahead and pull it out of the clamshell here. And you can see there's a lot of little foam for all the handrails that are on this locomotive. This locomotive has a lot of handrails, and there are two truck stabilizers here at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and remove those. I'm sorry my voice sounds a little lower than usual. I am recovering from a cold that I had just had, so I'm still a bit nasally and stuffed up. So let's go ahead and put these two truck stabilizers back. There we go. All right, so I'm going to do the foam all by off camera, and then I will get to you guys, and we will get into some history. And now onto some history. Now, our history comes directly from the owner's manual that we received, and just mind you that Rapido likes to throw a little bit of humor into their owner's manuals, so there might be a few jokes in here. But anyway, after decades producing electrical components for diesel-electric locomotives, along with offering a line of various light industrial and short-line engines and export locomotives, General Electric began work on a universal road diesel aimed at the North American market. Given that there were already well-established builders currently building competing products, this was a risky move even for them. GE negotiated with Cooper Bessemer to build a new V16 diesel engine, the FDL-16, to be used as the prime mover in their locomotives. In May of 1959, a pair of diesel-electric locomotives with a clean-looking high-nosed hood was released from GE's Erie, Pennsylvania plant. After 100,000 miles of testing, they were returned to Erie. In late 1960, 4 new U25B demonstrators were constructed. All featured high hoods and were painted in a white and red scheme that toured America's railroads beginning in the March of 1961. Union Pacific signed up for the first 8 production units, and they were high-nosed, followed by Frisco purchasing the 4 demonstrators and adding 4 new units, also all high-nose. 4 more demonstrators were built in 1962. These were numbered 2501 through 2504 and painted in a striking red and white scheme with a large GE logo on the nose. GE 2501 was the first low-nose U25B, with the others being high-nosed, to see if the railroads preferred the better crew visibility that it provided, and the crews did. GE received U25B orders from a large number of railroads thanks to the demonstrators' tours, and the U25 would pave the way for future Universal Series locomotives. Many U25Bs lasted until the early 1980s on some Class 1 railroads. Others would find their way onto short lines and museums. However, there are only 7 left today. Now, our locomotive here, ATSF 1601, was built in February of 1963, and in the mid-1970s, she was renumbered to 6609, and in 1971, specifically in February, she was traded back to GE for, I'm assuming, some more powerful locomotives. All right, so now with history out of the way, let's get into some detail, starting with the front. All right, so we're looking at the front, and we're going to start at the top and work our way down the bottom, as we always do. Starting at the top here, you can see the headlight, which operates when the locomotive is in a forward motion. We have our number boards right next to it, 1609 on either side of the headlight, and they also operate when there's power on to the locomotive from the track. We have separately applied windshield wipers here, here, and here. This one's bent a little out of shape from the removing of the foam process, but I can always push it back in. There is a grab iron over here, but you cannot see it. We'll be able to see it later on. And you can see the large single windshield here that was common of early generation diesels that had low nose. They thought it would provide better visibility. I mean, it did, but it did look a little strange aesthetically. Moving down to the nose here, you can see the lovely Santa Fe logo here. I believe these are 2 class lights here and here. We will have to see if they do operate when the locomotive has power on it. So I'm not sure if they do, but we will find out. You can see there's a large series of handrails here, here, and here, the safety rails. I don't know what this is. If somebody does know what this is, I looked on the to see if it was on the exploded parts diagram here, but unfortunately, if we look at it here, you can see hold on, where is it? I'm sorry, it's weirdly focused. It comes with that piece, so it was molded on. So I do not know what that is. So if anybody does know what this thing is here, I would greatly appreciate it. We have our little walkway steps so you can traverse the locomotive safely. It says keep off right here and there. There is an MU socket right here as well. And let's focus a little better there. We have a widthwise grab iron so you can traverse from one side of the locomotive to the other. And you know what? We are missing a step right here. There's a step right here. We are missing a step right here. And that is a bit of a shame. This marks the 3rd Rapido unit locomotive that I have purchased that has something either missing or broken. And I am very, very ashamed. We have our couplet cut bar right here, as well as the knuckle here. 3 MU hoses here, and there is our air brake hose. All right, so let's look at the rear detail. Looking at the rear of the locomotive, you can see at the top here our sand filler hatch right here, which I did forget to mention on the front. It is up front, and we will be able to see it when we're looking at the roof. There is a grab iron right here. The grab irons are actually on this side of the locomotive, as opposed to later renditions where you would see, actually no, there would be no grab irons at all on later GE models, but there is a ladder right here so that you can get up to the roof of the locomotive. We have our rear headlight, which operates when the locomotive is reversing. Our number boards, which also light up, 1609 on either side. 2 class lights, one right here and there. There's a door to access the radiator section, which is in the back of the locomotive. We have our handrails, this little thing. We have our walkway step here, an MU socket right there. Our widthwise yellow grab iron. 3 MU cables here and here. Our air brake hose, our knuckle coupler, our couple cut bar, and 2 little steps here and there. All right, so now let's look at some side detail. Looking at the conductor side of the locomotive, starting at the front here, we have some steps that lead up to the forward walkway. We have a little F to indicate this is the front of the locomotive. There's the handbrake wheel right here. Our numbers, 1609, all the lovely side windows here, and you can actually see inside the cab, and it's a fully detailed cab. In fact, right in here, apparently Rapido installed a toilet. If that's not dedication to realism, I don't know what is. We have our lovely truck detail, and this is a really great truck. It's very bulky in my opinion. You can see a real chain right here, which is very nice indeed. Here is the speed recorder right here. And you can see the lovely springs of the actual truck, so these would allow the truck to go to bounce on rough track. We have our brakes here and here. There's an air tank reservoir right here. As we move the locomotive along, you can see the fuel tank, which just has a big red fuel on it, which is very cool indeed. You can see a couple more legible plaques here. Unfortunately, I'm too blind to read that, so hopefully you can zoom in on the video like on your iPhone or Android and you can read what that says. Right up here above the Santa Fe, we have another little safety markings right here. It says danger, and then it says, I think, 900 volts. But you can see the beautiful, lovely Santa Fe logo there. And we have another air tank reservoir right there. As we move the locomotive along some more, you can see that ladder that I mentioned earlier. And there's the jack pad. And we have some more speed recorders here and there on that truck, which is very interesting indeed. And there's also sand droppers as well. I believe they're right here according to the diagram. And you can actually see through. It is see-through there. You can see my hand right there. You can see my fingers. It is see-through. That is very cool indeed. Looking at the engineer's side, it's essentially the same. And I mean, it is quite literally the same. This locomotive has a very lovely fact that it is very simple in its design. There is a grab iron right there actually though, but you can't see it. We have some battery boxes here and here and here. And as we move along, it's pretty much the same. And the only difference is that there's this little plaque, there's the building plate right there, because I can vaguely see General Electric and the logo of GE, and there's no ladder on this side. All right, so now let's look at some roof detail. Looking at the roof of the locomotive, you can see the sand filler hatch that I mentioned earlier. Oops. And there is that grab iron that I did mention earlier as well. Up on the roof of the cab, you can see an antenna, as well as the horn. I believe it's an early Leslie. It's not an RS3L, based off of the sound that I've heard. As we move the locomotive along here to the back end, you can see the exhaust stack, which actually has some really cool vented grates, which I think is really cool indeed. And you can see the radiator section that would eventually evolve over time to get bigger and larger until it has gotten to the size that we now have on the GE ET44s, which is very big and bulky, and I like that. But you can see it was very simple back then. This locomotive only had 2,500 horsepower, so they didn't need a very large radiator to cool everything down. And you can see the sand filler hatch right there. All right, so now let's get into the sound demo. Alrighty, so we have the locomotive here up on the test track, and let's go ahead and put some power to the track. This is a low sound locomotive, so before you actually hit power, you should hit F8 so that the locomotive will start up. So here we go. Alright, so that was the prime mover starting, and you can see that the number boards are on. Now, F0 is the forward headlight and the reverse headlight, when depending on the motion of the locomotive. There we go. F1 is the bell. A little quiet, but that's okay. You can always adjust it when you program the locomotive. F2 is the horn. Very interesting to say the least. That's why I think it's an early Leslie, not a Leslie RS3L. So, F3 is a flange squeal. We will not be able to unfortunately field that, or F4, which is dynamic brakes, because we only have about a foot of track here, which is unfortunate, but hopefully one day, like the SD45 that I mentioned in the last video, you'll be able to see these two working together on a train at a club that I occasionally hang out at. Now, F5 is the Doppler horn. So we've heard that in the past. We've heard that when I was reviewing the Rapido B36-7, which is also a GE unit, and also had a Leslie RS3L. Now, F6, if it worked, which would be the ditch lights, but unfortunately, there is nothing for that to be doing. F7 is to dim the headlight, and I'm going to be honest, I don't see really much of a difference. And I have hit it. I really don't see much of a difference, but apparently it does dim it. Now, F8 was the startup and the shutdown. I'm actually going to turn this thing off so you can hear me better. Now, we're going to go over F9, which is something called drive hold. So if you're big into prototypical operations, and you want to be starting up a very heavy train, perhaps on a very big grade, like 2%, well, you're going to be throwing it into notch 8, and I don't mean like actual notch 8. What drive hold allows you to do is that you can start your locomotive moving, let's say at the 1 or 2 speed. You hit F9, and you can throw your throttle wheel or little knob full to notch 8, and it'll sound like your locomotive is struggling to get that freight train up the hill with a sense more of realism. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit F8 again, and then I'm gonna hit F9, and then we will see what drive hold is, and you will hear this locomotive at notch 8. All right, here we go. So turn it back on. Alright, I'm turning on drive hold right now, F9, and now I'm throwing it into full notch 8. Very cool indeed. So, we're going to turn off the main headlight here. And now we're going to turn off F8, so now she's going to turn off completely. And now let's get into my final thoughts. So, overall, I think this is a very good looking locomotive, except for the 2 issues that I found. And yes, now there's 2. First of all, being that front step that was missing there. And then also this came off while I was setting up the sound demo. I don't know what that's from, so now after the review, I've got to do a very extensive look at this locomotive to figure out where the heck that came from. But regardless, I still think this is a good-looking locomotive. I mean, it looks great, and it also sounds great. I mean, Rapido, I've had a lot of issues with them in the past with their locomotives. Every locomotive that I've purchased from them has always had a part falling off or completely just missing pieces, and it is just very, very annoying because Rapido holds themselves to the highest of qualities, you know, and I've seen their products and they look really good when they're behind the glass, but I just don't know what my luck is. If you have similar experiences to this, please let me know in the comments. And it actually looks like, no, all right, we're good. But anyway, I got this off of Midwest Model Railroad, their hobby store in the Midwest, but I will leave a link to their website in the description below. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Also subscribe if you have not, and hit that notification bell to see what I have to upload next. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.